Have you ever noticed that something in your body feels different after 40, something subtle yet undeniable, like a quiet shift beneath the surface that you cannot fully explain but you know is real? Perhaps the bloating lasts longer than it used to, the energy does not return as quickly, or the fog in your mind lingers even after a full night's sleep. You begin to wonder whether this is simply aging or something deeper unfolding within you. What if these changes are not random, not weakness, and not something you must simply accept? What if your body is communicating an important message about balance, resilience, and adaptation during one of the most transformative phases of life? SIBO. After 40, how hormonal changes. Increase the risk of bacterial overgrowth is not just a medical concept, it is a story about awareness, responsibility, and the power to rebuild harmony from the inside out. As hormone levels shift in midlife, digestive function can change in subtle but powerful ways. Estrogen, progesterone, thyroid hormones, and even stress hormones influence the rhythm of your digestive tract, guiding the wave-like motion known as motility that moves food and bacteria through the intestines. When that rhythm slows, bacteria that belong primarily in the large intestine can accumulate in the small intestine, creating a condition called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This overgrowth does not happen overnight, and it does not happen without reason. It unfolds gradually, often quietly, as hormonal fluctuations alter the pace of digestion and the strength of muscular contractions in the gut. The body that once processed meals efficiently may now hesitate, allowing fermentation, gas, and inflammation to take root. But this is not a narrative of decline. It is a call to deeper understanding. Your body after 40 is not failing you. It is transitioning, recalibrating, and asking for a different level of care. Digestive motility slows not because you are broken, but because hormonal signals that once kept everything moving with youthful intensity begin to fluctuate. Estrogen influences bile production and gut lining integrity. Progesterone affects muscle relaxation, including the muscles of the intestinal tract. Thyroid hormones regulate metabolic speed, which includes digestive movement. When these hormones shift, the digestive orchestra changes tempo. If the timing becomes irregular, bacteria linger where they should not, feeding on partially digested carbohydrates and releasing gases that stretch the intestinal walls. The bloating becomes more than cosmetic discomfort. It becomes a sign of imbalance. Fatigue follows because nutrient absorption is compromised. Brain fog appears because inflammation communicates with the nervous system. Skin changes and stubborn weight gain emerge as the body struggles to manage both hormones and inflammation simultaneously. This is why understanding SIBO after 40 is not about fear, it is about empowerment. When you recognize that your digestive system is influenced by hormonal tides, you begin to see that symptoms are not random enemies, but signals guiding you toward restoration. Midlife is often portrayed as a period of inevitable decline, yet in truth, it can become a turning point toward deeper vitality if you choose awareness over resignation. The body is remarkably adaptable. It responds to nourishment, movement, stress reduction, and targeted support. The slowing of motility is not permanent destiny. It is a condition influenced by lifestyle, stress patterns, dietary habits, and hormonal care. You stand at a crossroads where understanding replaces confusion and knowledge replaces frustration. Instead of masking symptoms with temporary fixes, you can begin exploring the root cause of imbalance. You can learn how to support stomach acid, encourage healthy motility, calm inflammation, and rebuild the microbiome step by step. And as you begin this journey, you may discover that the discomfort you once resented becomes the catalyst for transformation, pushing you to understand your body more deeply than ever before. There is a moment in every transformation when awareness alone is no longer enough, and that moment often arrives quietly, disguised as frustration. You begin to change your diet, perhaps eliminate certain foods, maybe even add supplements. Yet the bloating returns, the fatigue lingers, and the scale refuses to move despite your effort. This is where suspense enters the story of your body, because what appears to be resistance may actually be a deeper imbalance reinforcing itself beneath the surface. When small intestinal bacterial overgrowth takes hold, it does more than cause digestive discomfort. It begins to interfere with the very hormones that influence its development. Bacteria in the small intestine can disrupt estrogen metabolism by producing enzymes that alter how estrogen is processed and recycled in the body. Instead of being properly broken down and eliminated, estrogen may circulate in altered forms, contributing to imbalance. At the same time, inflammatory compounds released by bacterial overgrowth send distress signals through the bloodstream, increasing systemic inflammation that affects energy, mood, metabolism, and even cognitive clarity. What makes this especially challenging after 40 is that the hormonal terrain is already shifting. Estrogen and progesterone fluctuate during perimenopause, thyroid function may subtly decline, and stress hormones often remain elevated due to modern lifestyle pressures. When inflammation from SIBO compounds these natural transitions, symptoms can intensify in ways that feel confusing and unpredictable. You might wake up feeling determined and disciplined, only to find yourself battling brain fog by midday. You might exercise consistently, yet notice stubborn weight gain that does not respond to traditional strategies. You may even begin to doubt your own perception, wondering whether the symptoms are exaggerated or unavoidable. But here is the truth that changes everything. The body operates as an interconnected system, and when one rhythm falters, others compensate until they can no longer maintain balance. Digestive motility slows, bacteria accumulate, inflammation rises, hormones fluctuate more dramatically, and the cycle reinforces itself. The suspense lies in recognizing that what seems like a single issue is actually a loop. And breaking that loop requires understanding rather than guesswork. Chronic inflammation linked to bacterial overgrowth can weaken the intestinal lining, allowing tiny particles to cross into the bloodstream and amplify immune responses. This immune activation further influences hormone signaling, stress response, and metabolic efficiency. The result can manifest as joint discomfort, skin changes, increased sensitivity to foods, and a persistent sense of heaviness. Yet within this complexity lies a powerful opportunity. When you identify the pattern, you gain the ability to interrupt it. You begin to see that addressing motility is not merely about digestion, but about restoring hormonal communication. Supporting thyroid health is not just about metabolism, but about reestablishing digestive rhythm. Managing stress becomes more than a mental exercise. It becomes a physiological necessity that influences gut movement and microbial balance. The suspense transforms into clarity as you realize that the symptoms are interconnected threads of one larger story. Instead of chasing isolated complaints, you begin to approach your health strategically. You learn that targeted antimicrobial approaches, when appropriate and guided properly, can reduce bacterial overgrowth. You understand that improving stomach acid can create an environment less hospitable to misplaced bacteria. You recognize that specific nutrients help repair the gut lining and calm inflammation. Most importantly, you discover that rebuilding digestive resilience requires patience, structure, and consistency. This is not an overnight fix, and it is not a dramatic cleanse that solves everything in a week. It is a deliberate process of restoring rhythm to a system that has been gradually thrown off course. And as you commit to that process, something shifts internally. The fear begins to dissolve, replaced by determination. The confusion gives way to strategy. The suspense that once felt unsettling becomes the tension before breakthrough, the quiet moment before the body begins to respond in ways that remind you of its extraordinary capacity to heal. Instead of masking symptoms with temporary fixes, you can begin exploring the root cause of imbalance. You can learn how to support stomach acid, encourage healthy motility, calm inflammation, and rebuild the microbiome step by step. And as you begin this journey, you may discover that the discomfort you once resented becomes the catalyst for transformation, pushing you to understand your body more deeply than ever before. The breakthrough does not arrive as fireworks or instant perfection. It arrives as subtle improvements that build momentum when you choose consistency over convenience. You begin to notice that the bloating decreases when meals are spaced properly and digestion is given time to complete its migrating motor complex cycles. You feel a steady rise in energy when protein intake supports muscle and metabolic resilience. You sense clarity returning as inflammation calms and blood sugar stabilizes. This is where the philosophy of healing becomes practical action, because rebuilding digestive harmony after 40 requires both knowledge and disciplined application. Motility can be supported through intentional habits such as regular movement, adequate hydration, mindful meal timing, and strategic nutrient intake that encourages coordinated intestinal contractions. Stomach acid, often diminished with age and chronic stress, can be optimized by reducing constant snacking, chewing thoroughly, and addressing underlying stress patterns that suppress digestive secretions. When appropriate and supervised, targeted antimicrobial strategies may help reduce excessive bacterial populations, but they must be followed by microbiome repair rather than abandonment of the process. The small intestine must be cleared, yet the entire ecosystem must also be restored. This means gradually reintroducing fibers that nourish beneficial bacteria, strengthening the gut lining with key nutrients, and prioritizing sleep as a non-negotiable pillar of hormonal recalibration. SIBO. After 40, how hormonal changes. Increase the risk of bacterial overgrowth is ultimately a reminder that midlife is not a closing chapter, but a recalibration phase that demands a more intelligent partnership with your body. When estrogen fluctuates, you respond with nourishment that supports detoxification pathways. When progesterone shifts and motility slows, you incorporate movement and stress management to keep the digestive rhythm alive. When thyroid signals soften, you evaluate nutrient sufficiency and metabolic support rather than surrendering to fatigue. Each action becomes a vote for resilience. Each habit reinforces communication between gut, brain, and hormones. The inflammation that once amplified symptoms begins to quiet when triggers are addressed at the root rather than masked temporarily. You stop chasing symptoms and start cultivating systems. This structured, step-by-step rebuilding of digestive balance teaches patience because true restoration honors biological timing. Cells regenerate gradually, microbial populations shift in response to sustained environmental change. Hormonal balance stabilizes when signals are consistent rather than chaotic. The body rewards repetition. The philosophy here is simple but profound. The same persistence that allowed imbalance to accumulate can be redirected to restore harmony. You are not fighting your body, you are guiding it. You are not aging into decline, you are evolving into deeper awareness. Midlife becomes an initiation into mastery, where discipline replaces denial and education replaces fear. The digestive tract, once a source of frustration, transforms into a compass that signals alignment or misalignment with remarkable honesty. When you listen carefully, you adjust earlier. When you act deliberately, you prevent escalation. Energy improves not because of luck, but because inflammation decreases and nutrient absorption strengthens. Mental clarity returns not by accident, but because systemic stress is lowered and microbial imbalance is corrected. Weight stabilizes as hormones communicate effectively and metabolic pathways operate with efficiency. This is the reward of understanding the interconnectedness of gut health and hormonal shifts after 40. It is not about perfection, it is about progression. It is about committing to the long game of resilience rather than the short-term illusion of quick fixes. And as you stand in this new awareness, you recognize that transformation was never about eliminating symptoms alone. It was about reclaiming agency over your health story. The journey continues with intention, curiosity, and disciplined care. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early. Instead of masking symptoms with temporary fixes, you can begin exploring the root cause of imbalance. You can learn how to support stomach acid, encourage healthy motility, calm inflammation, and rebuild the microbiome step by step. And as you begin this journey, you may discover that the discomfort you once resented becomes the catalyst for transformation, pushing you to understand your body more deeply than ever before.